What it is, what it do, YouTube. It's your boy Vince Rashad, aka The Painful Truth. Here to give you a little bit of a history lesson and drop my 2 cents in on the Miley Cyrus situation. Try to keep this video around 10, 12 minutes. And I'm going to give you a link to another guy who I really like when I'm on page with somebody else. And I swear I actually had made this video 5 days ago, but I erased it and decided to do it over again. I'm going to talk about the history of cultural pass-off and a little bit about what's going on right now in the music industry with your girl, Miley Cyrus. Been a big old buzz now. I ain't never been no Hannah Montana fan, but I'm going to start a little bit backward. I'm going to start talking about Miley at about 5:30 in this video. But first I'm going to talk about California and the history of the Nazi Party. Often you'll hear a lot of black women in California say that black men don't want no black woman in Cali, that they chase after blonde-headed, blue-eyed white women, and that they want them a white girl. And often the case is you'll hear from many brothers that good luck at trying to get a black woman in California to say she's black. She'll claim she's mixed with Navajo, Hawaiian, she's 1/3 anything else but black. She's always mixed with something, even though she looks like a straight up African, But that didn't just pop up, that didn't just come up, that has a history to it. In 1849 was when white people started flooding into California in big time numbers. And when they started coming to Cali in big numbers, they ran into two distinct populations. We all know the Mexicans was there. But in Central and Northern California, they ran into a very dark-skinned Asiatic people. And white people who are always hungry and thirsty for land and territory, land and water, immediately went to war, You got the Mexican-American War, and then you had the pretty much genocide against those dark Asiatic people who were ruled by a woman named Queen Caledonia. Just spell California with a D. Go to Google and look her up. And look up the indigenous black Asiatic populations of California and Hawaii. And you'll see what I'm talking about. The white people who were in California then developed a very extreme form of white solidarity. Germans eventually came into California in the 1880s, 1890s, and early 1900s. This is where the Nazis, and I'll provide you a link. You don't have to take my word for it. I'll give you evidence. This is actually where the Nazis got their ideology from, about strongly favoring the blonde head and the blue eye. And, after basically pretty much wiping out Queen Caledonia's kingdom, empire, queendom, white people began settling into California, and the culture of blonde-headed, blue-eyed as superior to the black Asiatics and the brown Mexicans pretty much stayed in effect. All the way up from that time period to Pamela Anderson, and many of the blonde-headed, blue-eyed performers and actresses and Hollywood celebrities who walked the Hollywood Walk of Fame and who we pretty much know historically. But that's the history of California. You'll notice that whether you're Mexican or black or whatever, you tend to notice that in California there's a very heavy preference to dating white people, specifically white people with blonde hair and blue eyes. That tends to be the grand prize. And that is something that is what you could call cultural pass-off. Passed off from white people to both blacks and Mexicans in California. So remember that and keep that in mind. Culture tends to pass off from people to people. Culturalistic ideas. And remember, this is also where the Nazi Party got its ideology. They got their ideology from California. Now let's talk about your girl Miley Cyrus. My main man, Tariq Nasheed, did a very extremely good video. That brother breaks stuff down very well. I'm going to give y'all a link. It'll be like the second link in the description box to a video he just uploaded yesterday. It's called Slumming. He's basically explaining to you in a Hollywood sense of things what's going on with Miley Cyrus. It's somewhat of a minstrel show, and they are trying to phase her over from child actor to successful celebrity. That's what they're doing, and they're basically using black people to sabotage her, or say, you know, this culture is degenerate, and if she engages in it, she's a little degenerate, and then they're going to do a 180 at some point in the future and make her the sweet little white damsel. And for the record, that girl ain't got not one drop of booty. That girl ain't got no booty. I'm serious, man. That girl does not have any butt at all. She alright, but it is what it is. But I thought that it was very interesting that Miley Cyrus is from Nashville, Tennessee. You know, she's Billy Ray Cyrus's daughter. And you need to kind of take a little bit of a history lesson. Go to Netflix and check out the movie Cadillac Records. There was something that existed after slavery all the way up to really to the very current day. And that something was called the Black Belt. It used to be called the Old Chitlin Circuit. In the Old Chitlin Circuit, basically you can make a circle from Little Rock, Arkansas down to New Orleans, Houston, Texas, Mobile, Alabama, Savannah, Georgia, and work your way all the way up to Carolina and come on back through Tennessee. That was called the Old Chitlin Circuit. And in the Old Chitlin Circuit, you had a lot of blues men. These blues men, from Screaming Jay all the way up to Muddy Waters, pretty much laid down the foundation. And they were the first rock and roll musicians. Like I said, check out the movie Cadillac Records. Muddy Waters, Little Walter, Little Richard, way before the 1980s hair bands. Little Richard was doing that way back in the 50s and 60s, James Brown, all these guys. They pretty much laid down the foundation of rock and roll. Chuck Berry, all of them. What ended up happening is that they used to perform music, and the white people at the time called it race music. At the time, white people liked the music, but they didn't like these guys performing, especially in the South, in Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, in front of all these white folk. And I'll be brutally honest with you, from Little Rock, Arkansas, all the way to Nashville, Tennessee, you have what I call the Wigger belt, the Wigger belt. Love it or hate it, there are some white folk in that area, especially in Memphis, North Little Rock, and Nashville, who are some of the most niggified white folk that you'll ever run into. They so niggified that they sit around black people and say nigga, 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 nigga all day, and black folk don't even too much even bother them, because the only thing that black folk recognize them as white is just their physical appearance. Trust me, there are a lot of Paul Walls in Memphis and Nashville and North Little Rock along that I-40, that Interstate 40 corridor. It shouldn't surprise you that Miley Cyrus did her little twerk dance in Juicy J's video, Bands That Make Her Dance. Juicy J is a former member of 3-6 Mafia with him and DJ Paul. Remember back in 2005, they had a hit song called It's Hard Out Here on the Pimp. It's Hard Out Here on the Pimp was a song that was in the soundtrack of the movie Hustle and Flow. Hustle and Flow was a movie about a black pimp and a white girl from Memphis, Tennessee. There are many, many, many niggified white people in Memphis, Tennessee. It shouldn't surprise you either that Elvis Presley is buried in Memphis, Tennessee, but Elvis Presley's father owned slaves, sharecroppers. They used to have juke joints. These were little wooden clubs off in the woods. And they used to party, drink. That's where the sharecroppers and the old slaves went to have fun on Saturday night, Friday night, Sunday after church. And a lot of white folk went to these juke joints, and there was a lot of celebrating and, acting a fool in there. But a lot of white folks went in there, and Elvis Presley, as a young boy, was one of them. And that's where Elvis picked up them smooth little dances and all that, having that soul that he had. He picked that up from sharecroppers. Again, cultural crossover. One cultural aspects of one people kind of migrating over to another group of people. But before Elvis Presley even became popular, there were many, many black performers with them sideburns, with that perm that came up in the front, and them old loose bell-bottom pants. The only thing was that white people listening to black people do this race music, specifically white men, they hurried up and found some white replacements for it. And Muddy Waters, Little Walter, all these guys who, their popularity in America by the late 50s, early 60s started to kind of, decline a little bit. So they went to Europe where they found, people who admired their music also. And it wasn't too long after Muddy Waters, who did, Bad to the Bone, and a whole lot of other songs, wasn't too long after he arrived in Europe that the Rolling Stones and the Beatles popped up out of Europe. Where do you think they get that from? The Rolling Stones and the Beatles, especially the Rolling Stones, they pretty much admitted that they admired Muddy Waters and that they got their style and their, whole ideal of who they were and what they did from Muddy Waters. Mr. Bad to the Bone himself. But check out the movie Cadillac Records and, you'll see what I'm talking about. And hit the link in the video if you want to listen to more of the political aspect of the Hollywood politics that's going on in this Miley Cyrus video, this Miley Cyrus ordeal. And for the record, Miley Cyrus looked real small standing up next to that black woman's butt. I'm talking about she looked real little. But I hope this helps you learn a little something. Open your mind, connect the dots, because it absolutely surprises me at just how quick we forget things in history. Anyway, it's your boy Vince Rashad, man. I hope I taught you a little something today. Holla at y'all, folks.